Hello, everybody! It is June the 7th of 2016, and this is the 29th episode of the No Name Cinema Society. And you can see right here, we are starting our evening by talking about the film Popstar. You can see the little poster embedded in the amazing design there. And we have a very special episode tonight. Tonight, apparently, is our Sexy Pirate Show. Either fortunately or unfortunately, I wish it weren't our Sexy Pirate Show, but I had a eye emergency on Sunday, and so we had to. I got my little hospital band here, as I got some issues here with this. Anyway. So I have to wear an eye patch for the show, and it's not the most comfortable thing of all time, but we're making the most of it. And also, you can see I am now clean-shaven. This is my first show clean-shaven in a long time. My teams got knocked out of the Stanley Cup playoffs, but still the reigning champions, at least for 2 more days, are the Chicago Blackhawks, so I'm wearing in honor of that. So this is our 3rd consecutive comedy that we've talked about, Popstar, and one can also argue that it is the 3rd consecutive comedy that... the 3rd consecutive comedy team, or movie with a comedy team that we've talked about. So that is, we'll see if the other guys feel that Lonely Island qualifies as a comedy team in the traditional sense. And just like Andy Samberg, I too work with a couple lesser-known talents. The first of which would be my very own Jorma Taccone. Out of the shadows, once and for all. J Money, how are you, J Money?
I'm Jorma. I didn't even know. I figured I'd be the other guy. What's his name? Akiba?
Yes, that would be his name.
I mean, I have the beard, so I just figured, based on that stat alone, you would go for that.
Well, no. Well, actually, I was thinking that Akiba is the more soft-spoken of the 3. So our other cohort is our soft-spoken member, the less loquacious Drunk Davey, who unfortunately refuses to actually drink on the broadcast. So I don't know what to do about that. Maybe for the 30th episode next time, Davey, can we make that happen?
I've had a beer on the show before, but yeah, maybe. You never know.
I assume that you show up drunk. I mean, I assume that's how you got your name. Not necessarily that you drink while we're doing this, but that you're just always drunk to begin with.
No.
That's not your style?
It's hard enough for me to come up with things to say anyway.
I appreciate the fact that you're preloaded in this situation.
There you go.
You do remember that the best episode you did was when you were drunk, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't drunk. Every episode's the best episode. They get one after another. They just keep getting better.
All right, so let me go through the schedule for the evening. Obviously, we're starting right now with Popstar, and at 8:30, 5:30 Pacific, we've got the Indie Spotlight, which is Lars von Trier's Melancholia, and at 9 o'clock, 6 o'clock Eastern, we've got Johnny Belinda from 1948. And then we've got the Sound Off at 10 o'clock, 7 o'clock Pacific, our freeform segment that Davey's going to have a diatribe about. He wants to readdress the comic book bubble. I'm going to have a top 5 Best Actress Oscar winners, the best 5 Best Actress performances in history, and also we're going to talk about some other films in our freeform segment of the evening, and that's how we end the evening. Now, I saw this film, Popstar, about almost a month ago at this point, May 11th. I was invited to a special screening, and because people are starting to watch the show, that some of these studios, Universal in particular, is reaching out, being like, hey, do you want to come to a screening of this? And I like free movies. Who doesn't? So they invited me, and I got to see it early, and I hope I can remember. J Money, you also had a memorable experience at your screening of the movie. Is that correct?
That's true. My theater crapped out. We sat around for 20 minutes trying to wait to see what was going to happen, and then eventually it was decided that the projector did indeed not work. And so we all shuffled out, got our free passes, You know, in the end, in hindsight, and I know we'll probably talk about this a little bit more later, probably for the best, because there was a family of 5 sitting in front of me, like a father and a bunch of, like, I don't know, 8 to 10-year-old boys. And in hindsight, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't have to sit next to them while we watched some of those scenes, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, and maybe we'll get to talk about that. J Money, I've got Line and Kugel Summer Shandy with me tonight. What have you got?
Well, I'm doing my own michelada, so we are both taking in some summer drinkage, some summer.
Nice. Although I still haven't really worn short sleeves here. I feel like I'm still like got the sweaters rolling in Los Angeles. I don't know what the deal is.
Yeah.
All right, time to talk about Popstar. We only have like a few minutes left. It feels like, but whoops, I pressed the button and nothing happened. There it is. All right, and the problem is it's really hard to do, guys, with one eye. But regardless, this mockumentary follows rap star Connor For Real just as he's about to release his second solo album. Having split up years ago from his band, whose name, by the way, I can't remember. It was May 11th that I saw the movie. The release of something about boys. I think there were boys in it. The release of the second album is a pivotal time in Connor's career as he tries to prove himself and to the world that his first album was not a fluke, and that he can stand up his own 2 feet as an artist, etc. So it's time for opening thoughts, and I think I'm going to start with Davey. Davey, how do you feel?
You know, I thought it was I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was well done, but I also found it disappointing, and it's kind of hard for me to articulate. But I'm gonna do my best tonight.
Well, what else is new? But we're here to help you articulate it, quite frankly. So I'm here to do that with you. And we've got a new thing we like to introduce. We call it the Davey Scale, and he said this is a good movie, ladies and gentlemen. So now we know for sure and for final that so that's where Popstar lands as far as Davey's concerned.
I mean,
so if there's any questions,
high up on the scale, so.
Yeah, I mean it is sort of higher up in the scale, but that's the phrase he used, and that's where it lands. He's got some quibbles, it sounds like. And J Money, where are you on this movie?
I guess I would echo Davy Joe in some ways. I enjoyed it. I thought it was for the most part a funny comedy. I enjoyed pretty much where it was going and what happened. I think maybe parodying this whole genre is a little low-hanging fruit. And frankly, honestly, I'm really not the best person to even judge because I'm, kind of an outsider anyway. But overall, I enjoyed it.
Cool. Well, actually, I mean, like I said before, this is our third consecutive comedy. And actually, out of all 3, this is the one I enjoyed the most. I've got some quibbles too, and I wouldn't say that this was the funniest. But I would say I enjoyed it the most, and hopefully we can have time to unpack that a little more as we go along. All right, so let's break that down a little bit, because I think one of the strengths of the movie is the screenplay. I think that it was a very sharp satire of the music industry, and I think that's the thing that it stands out to me versus Keanu and the Nice Guys in that regard, is that I think that with all its humor and jokes, I think there is something going on in terms of. I agree with what you're saying about low-hanging fruit, J Money. Like, I guess that's true, but I think it's much more effective than something like, say, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story, which sort of tread similar ground to some degree. So I think it was successful in that regard. I also really enjoy Lowell Allen's work in general, but. So let's start with screenplay and at least the satirical aspect of it. Who wants to go first on that?
Well, I thought it was pretty successful. I guess let me circle back to what I was saying before. I don't think I probably picked up on all the jokes. I think that there was actually a fair amount of joke density in this film that probably went over my head to some degree, just because I'm vaguely familiar with a lot of the icons that they're sort of discussing and dissecting. I'm vaguely familiar with a lot of people that were actual musicians that showed up in the movie itself. But I mean, what I got, I thought was pretty funny, and I think that they really managed to pull in a fair amount of empathy with the satire, which I think is a really important, aspect of doing a strong satire. So.
Okay, Davey Joe, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think the screenplay was good and the jokes were funny. But I think that maybe it was just a pacing issue. I mean, I was kind of surprised that the movie was only, I think, like 86 minutes long. It felt like a kind of a longer movie to me. So I don't know. I don't know if there were, things they could have done with the pacing to kind of make it a little quicker, like experience. But
David, go ahead.
Go ahead, J Money.
I was going to say, how full was your audience?
Oh, it was dead. It was like 10:15 in the morning on Saturday, so it was like me and two other guys.
I mean, that might have contributed to how it felt like it was dragging a little for you.
I mean, it could have. I'm kind of used to that crowd, but
yeah. You recognize?
Well, I mean, here's my other thing. I mean, like the jokes. Like I thought there were jokes for. I mean, again about the screenplays. Don't mind my hospital band here. I thought they were clever. I didn't necessarily think anything side-splitting, and that's why I mentioned earlier in my opening thoughts that I didn't necessarily, think it was the funniest of the movies. I think Nice Guys actually had the most like belly laughs, but it was the movie I mean, there were so many issues with it that I had. In terms of other elements to it, like this, I was smiling throughout. I was chuckling. I didn't find it side-splitting necessarily. And does that like add up to some of your quibbles, maybe, Davy Joe?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think my side split maybe one time. There's a scene that takes place in a limo. That was pretty funny.
Oh, see, well, that's interesting. Well, that's a scene I did not like because there were times where well, no, seriously, like I know I feel the need to push the envelope, but there are times this is not the scene. But there are times I feel like it got a little too blue for my taste. The humor was just went a little too far, and I don't find that funny necessarily. I know I do have a favorite scene that I was going to bring up at the end, though. So we'll hold on to that your limo scene, and maybe Jay Money could be thinking about his favorite scene. Where are you guys on the actual? Along the line of the same thing with screenplay, the actual plot. Do you have any like thoughts as far as the plot was concerned, like the story of this situation with the Connor for real and his cohorts? Anybody?
I thought the plot was. I guess I would say it was very secondary. I don't feel like there was anything really special with the plot. That didn't necessarily detract from it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I found it extremely predictable, but I mean, there was surprise and fun in the how it went about getting to where it went.
They even themselves sort of reference the fact that they are picking up on a very familiar, idea and plot by talking about another movie consistently throughout this movie that mirrors the activity.
Remind me what that movie is.
The Parent Trap.
Oh, okay. I actually didn't pick up on that exact. Oh yeah, I guess. Well, I don't think there was a direct reference necessarily.
Well, I mean, they literally talk. I mean, yeah. I mean, to me, it felt like it was them, being a little bit self-aware about it.
It was pretty on the nose, I thought.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, they basically. This is what he's going to do. He's going to get them in the same place so that they fall back in love with each other and they get back together.
I mean, if they'd only shown it, like, one scene of him looking at the movie, that'd be one thing, but it was a joke that they kind of hit a couple times. So that's all. That's the only reason for
me. All right. Yeah, I mean, so I guess you're saying it's self-aware of its predictability, and from a plot point of view, and I guess that's a plus as far as that's concerned.
Oh, it was fine.
Wasn't a problem at all for me. You're not necessarily going to this movie for plot. You're going to see the performances. You're going to see the jokes, and you want some sort of familiarity to kind of guide you through.
That's my segue. Performances is the next thing I wanted to talk about. Overall, I feel pretty positive about them. Andy Samberg. I feel like really strong comic timing and reliably funny. Like I enjoy Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I find him consistently funny. Where are you guys on Andy to start out with?
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. It's nice going to a comedy where you don't have to worry about people making awkward appearances. Like Andy and the Lonely Island crew, I think that they really know how to do this kind of genre specifically.
Yeah, Davey, anything on Andy?
Yeah, he nailed it. He was great.
And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, like, I knew the videos, but it's a different animal, and I actually thought the real surprise in the movie was Jorma Taccone for me. I thought he was outstanding, really sharp, a standout to me. In this sort of like seemingly secondary role. I mean, I didn't necessarily think Akiva Schaffer was a factor. His role was much smaller, and we talk about him being the more soft-spoken of the bunch. But I thought Jorma, who's one of the co-directors along with Schaffer, and also directed the film MacGruber, I thought he was great. And I guess I was aware of what he was doing in the Lonely Island videos, but I guess that didn't resonate for me as much as this performance. I see you nodding.
Yeah, no, I agree. He really knew how to play against Andy, I think, very well.
Yeah, no, and so I mean, I guess that begs the question that I started with earlier. Comedy team. Do you consider Lonely Island a comedy team?
I do, certainly.
In a traditional sense, like, sorry, was that Jay?
Yeah, no, I totally do.
And Davey Joe.
Sure. Yeah, I think that.
So would you then also agree that this is our third? Like we saw Key and Peele, we saw The Nice Guys, and we saw Lonely Island. Is that three? Like we talked about, like when we started Keanu, like the death of the comedy team. Like they used to be the Abbott and Costellos, the Marx Brothers, the Three Stooges. Is this like a renaissance of comedy teams?
Well, I let's see the Nice Guys. Let's see if they get those guys together again. In more than one movie, but yeah, they could be
at
definitely.
The screening that I was at of the Nice Guys, and if you watched our show, episode 28.1, you know that I was at a Q&A for it. They begged us to let people know about the movie so that they could do it again. I think they would like to, but neither this movie nor that movie or Keanu, none of them are doing very well. So maybe this attempt at the return of the comedy team is not working because they're not really doing that great at the box office. So that's going to lead me to segue to the next topic. Is I do want to talk, give some acknowledgement to what Lonely Island is known for, and that's the music. I thought not only the music was really strong, but really fun songs. I thought the staging of the songs and performances were terrific and very funny. I actually am going to come out on a limb here and say the final song, which I believe was called Impressive Thoughts, I think that's a potential Oscar nominee.
Yeah, you think so?
Do you disagree?
No, I don't disagree. I think it's a real strong point that I don't know if they're intentionally making, that these guys are really good at music, and if they can produce this kind of music that sounds exactly like the music they're parodying, then where do you draw the line? Part of the thing for me with this movie is that I really enjoyed their take on the culture, on the music industry culture, but at the same time, I know that these are guys seem to know it inside and out, and also they are it to some degree already. So it's almost like it's to me it's almost homaging it as much as it's parodying it, and since I don't necessarily enjoy that music so much, I guess I also felt like the satire maybe lacked a little bit of an edge because of that. But I also feel like the empathy that they brought because of that helped play up the characters, helped make the movie itself much more rounded, and helped make the performances much more believable. So that all worked together. What
I liked about Impressive Thoughts, I think Impressive Thoughts, in spite of it being a parody, it was also very clever in and of itself. Like, the wordplay and the structure of the song, I thought was really impressive, for lack of a better word. Davey, do you have anything on that final song?
It's great. Very, very well written, interesting lyrics, just funny, interesting lyrics, and all the songs I thought were funny and great. It's
their strength, and it's a strength of the movie, and worth seeing. And I think it's a soundtrack and definitely. Well, how fun would it be to see Impressive Thoughts performed at the Oscars, especially with its special guest star that does the hook on the song, which I won't reveal to the audience now.
Absolutely.
So it's early in the year, but it's definitely a candidate, and a lot better than a lot of the songs that they've been putting before us in the past.
Well, Lonely Island has had platinum hits, so it's.
No. I meant the Oscar-nominated songs.
Well, that's why I feel like it's entirely possible for this to get picked up by the Oscars. Certainly, it could certainly easily get the pop.
Well, the movie's not doing very well, and that's my concern as far as the Oscars is concerned. They would need some memory and a publicity push. One final topic I want to talk about, and that is my main quibble with the movie is how it used the mockumentary format, and because the buddy I took to this the screening, he mentioned that it's hard to mess up mockumentaries, which I only partially agree with. I've certainly seen some are better than others, and as funny as I find this movie, like they did have some inconsistencies in the format that were unnecessary. And I mean, for example, the interviews, the people they were interviewing, like they would interview them before and after. Like the timing of the interviews seemed to not make sense. You know what I mean? Because so much happens within the quote unquote story that that by the time that we see they interview one person that's about like the Connor's rise, and then they cut back to them talking about Connor's fall, but it's all in the present tense. Like, in other words, there was some inconsistency in terms of how they use those interviews. Did anybody else notice that, or is that just like a minor filmmaking quibble?
I mean, I didn't notice it. I totally can see what you're talking about, but it certainly didn't catch my eye at the time.
Overall, I feel like they were playing fast and loose with the rules of documentary. There were way too many camera angles for them to be like actually. Although they did mock music documentaries too in that one scene where all the cameras were running into each other.
Yes.
Kind of brilliant.
Yep.
David, do you have anything on the this mockumentary format?
It was funny because I was trying to think about it in the car on the way home. Like, did it drop out of that like for a while? Like, it stopped?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it was a little different in that regard. Probably not the best, but
did we cover your quibble, by the way? Did we? You said you had some issues, but I don't recall what they are.
It's just you know what it was? Is maybe it was just kind of a little slower than I wanted it. Maybe it was just the predictability of the storyline that kind of made it feel that way. But really, I mean, it was funny, and the performances were great, and the music was great. So maybe I'm just being a pain.
Maybe, because I don't remember feeling like it was slow, and we were in an industry audience with not that many people in it, quite frankly.
Do people laugh at those things?
Everybody was very laughing, and so I want to get our favorite scenes. I got maybe a minute left. Do you have a favorite scene, J Money?
It's funny actually. I think one of my favorite scenes was one of the ones that happens without any cameras. It's one of the
That's my favorite scene too. I think we're talking about the same thing.
That's just.
Do you want to describe it?
So ridiculous, and it was so welcome in this. It was such a ridiculous, sort of absurd thing to do.
When they're told not to film something.
Yeah, and then it's just the voiceover stuff happening, and then
I call it the B scene.
Yeah.
That is also my favorite scene. We've outvoted Davey on the best scene in the movie.
Oh no.
I'll give you that.
Feel like it was outstanding. Davey likes the boob and penis. We like.
I do think that was some of the best full frontal male nudity scenes that we've seen in a while. I mean,
what's that?
I think it was some of the best full frontal male nudity we've seen in a while.
It was pretty funny.
It was pretty funny, yeah.
Some of the best full frontal male nudity we've seen in a while. I'm going to ruminate on that a little bit. But I guess, I mean, best in terms of like best penis. Like you thought that was one of the best looking penises you've seen in a while.
I've seen better ones. I mean, especially if I look in the mirror. But most of the time.
Oh! Set them up.
I think that you're seeing a huge. I mean, especially with Avatar, you see a rise in full frontal male nudity used as a comic device. But I think that in this scene specifically, I think that it actually kind of topped the other ones that you usually see it with. I think it was ad nauseum to the point where it actually was funny to me.
Okay, fair enough. That scene was one of the ones that bothered me, but overall, net positive for me and a Popstar. Our next show is supposedly going to be on Wednesday, June 29th. The Free State of Johnson. I mean, the Free State of Jones is our next movie. So that's June 29th at 8 p.m., 5 p.m. Pacific. But right now, coming up at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Eastern, this eye patch is killing me. Like, it's not. I'm really struggling. I'm like, what time is it? And so that's coming up. Apparently, my right eye is my bad eye, by the way. That's what I've learned in this process.
Not good.
We're going to talk. Any spotlights coming up, and we've got a very abstract film called Melancholia from director Lars von Trier. That's discussion's coming up in about 5 minutes. 8:30 approximately, 5:30 Pacific. We will see you shortly.